All right, let's just jump right into this explainer on one of the absolute oldest, most influential, and continuous cultures in human history, ancient and imperial China. We're going to trace the massive arc of this civilization, looking at how it evolved from these super isolated farming settlements into a globally connected powerhouse of innovation. So, to really wrap our heads around China, we've got to start with the map. Picture this. You are completely boxed in. To your southwest, you've got the towering Himalayas and the massive plateau of Tibet. To your north, the vast, unforgiving Gobi Desert. We're going to explore how this intense geographic isolation forced a highly unique society to look inward, and how they eventually wound up inventing everything from the compass to paper. Here's a quick roadmap for this explainer. 1. Geography and early origins. 2. Three great philosophies. 3. The Golden Age. 4. Inventions and innovations. And 5. Silk Road and expansion.
Section 1. Geography and early origins.
Just imagine living in the extreme environment of early China. You've got the raging muddy waters of the Huanghe, or the Yellow River, and the Changjiang to the south. Now, these rivers provided the incredibly fertile soil you absolutely need to grow crops and sustain huge populations. But, well, it was a major double-edged sword. These rivers brought life, sure, but they also brought devastating, uncontrollable floods. This huge environmental challenge, combined with those massive mountain and desert barriers we just talked about, meant early settlers were completely cut off from other civilizations. They basically had to rely entirely on their own resourcefulness to survive. Now, as these early settlements grew into powerful dynasties, the rulers kind of needed a good excuse for their absolute control, right? Enter the Zhao dynasty. They came up with this brilliant, crucial political idea called the Mandate of Heaven. Basically, they claimed they had a divine, heavenly right to rule. But, and this is a really big but, that mandate could be lost. It actually forced leaders to care for their people and rule for the common good. If a king did a terrible job, or even if there were natural disasters like those massive floods, the people literally believed heaven had withdrawn its mandate. And guess what? That gave them the right to overthrow the king. Okay, let's lock in some key facts from this first era. We see a clear progression of early dynasties here. It starts with the Xia dynasty, though actually a lot of historians think they might just be a legend since we don't have much physical evidence. Then you have the Shang dynasty, famous for their awesome bronze making and using oracle bones for early writing. Next up is the Zhao dynasty, who brought us that pivotal mandate of heaven. And remember, surrounding all this incredible development were those massive natural barriers, like the Himalayas and the Gobi Desert, keeping the whole civilization locked in. Moving on to Section 2, Three Great Philosophies. Fast forward to the 500s BC, and the Zhao kingdom is falling apart. It's a complete mess. A brutal, chaotic civil war breaks out, known as the period of the Warring States. Armies are just wiping out enemy states, violence is everywhere. This massive crisis really backed Chinese thinkers into a corner, forcing them to desperately search for a way to fix their broken society. I mean, how do you stop all that fighting? How do you even begin to restore order? Well, two major historical figures stepped up during this crazy, turbulent time. On the left, we've got Confucius, ancient China's great teacher who basically traveled the country trying to persuade leaders to adopt his ideas. And on the right is Lao Tse, the old master. Now here's a wild little side note. While Lao Tse's teachings profoundly shaped China, modern scholars don't even know for absolute sure if he was a real, single historical person. Crazy, right?
So we end up with three totally distinct game plans for fixing society. First up, Confucianism, which was heavily focused on duty. It taught that if everyone put their family and community above their own selfish needs, and if rulers actually set a good example, society would prosper. Then you have Taoism, which took pretty much the exact opposite approach. Instead of aggressively trying to fix the world, it told people to just give up worldly concerns, seek inner peace, and live in harmony with nature. Finally, we have legalism. Developed by a scholar named Han Feizi, this was a much darker take. It argued that humans are just naturally evil, so you need strict, cruel laws and massive force to keep them in line. Aristocrats absolutely loved legalism, and it later became the whole guiding philosophy of the powerful Qin dynasty.
Time for another quick fact check. It is absolutely crucial to remember that it was the horrific violence of the Warring States period that birthed these ideas. Keep Confucianism, Taoism, and legalism crystal clear in your mind, because these aren't just ancient history. They literally become the cultural DNA of China for the next 2,000 years. All right, Section 3, the Golden Age. Over the next 700 years or so, China goes into overdrive. We see three major dynasties rapidly take power: the Sui, the Tang, and the Song. After hundreds of years of civil war with no central government, a general named Wendi finally founded the Sui dynasty in 581 AD. And that really kicked off an era that brought just unprecedented wealth, order, and cultural growth to the whole region. But, this kind of rapid progress usually comes with a pretty dark side. The key thing to understand here is how Wendi's son, Emperor Yongdi, tried to modernize the empire. He forced millions of farmers into brutal, back-breaking labor to rebuild the Great Wall and dig the massive Grand Canal. Now, the canal was a brilliant economic move to link the northern and southern rivers. But imagine being a farmer, heavily taxed and forced into that kind of misery. They were so incredibly furious that they violently revolted, murdered Yongdi, and literally toppled the entire Sui dynasty. Luckily, things stabilized a ton under the succeeding Tang dynasty, bringing in massive growth. The capital city, Chang'an, exploded to a staggering 1 million people. During this era, Empress Wu Zetian emerged as the only solo female ruler in all of Chinese history, and she vastly strengthened the military. We also see a huge shift in government. Instead of just getting a cushy job because of your family name, a wealthy class of scholar officials actually rose to power by passing rigorous, merit-based civil service exams rooted in Neo-Confucianism. Plus, Buddhism is spreading like wildfire, brought in by Indian traders, with Buddhist monasteries even running schools and providing medical care to the public. Let's review the key takeaways for the Golden Age. You've got to remember the massive infrastructure projects like the Grand Canal, the incredibly unique rise of Empress Wu Zetian, and how society was just profoundly transformed by both Buddhism and this new exam-based government system that actually rewarded intense study and merit. Which brings us to Section 4, Inventions and Innovations. Okay, this is where things get really cool. Let's look at one of the most important developments ever. Paper had already been invented back under the Han Dynasty, but in the 600s, the Tang Dynasty leveled it up with woodblock printing. First, they painstakingly cut characters into a full, solid wooden block. Then, they'd slather ink all over it. Finally, they laid paper on top to make a print. Before this, books had to be copied entirely by hand and were insanely expensive. This single invention completely revolutionized how knowledge and ideas spread across the globe. Here's your innovations fact check, and these are absolutely crucial to remember. We are talking about Song and Tang inventions that literally altered the trajectory of human history. We've got mass printing, spreading knowledge. We have the invention of gunpowder, originally used for weapons like fire lances, explosives, and fireworks. We have the magnetic compass, which finally lets sailors navigate accurately across the open ocean. And of course, porcelain, perfected by Tang artisans, which became so globally famous that the West literally just called it Chinaware. And finally, Section 5, Silk Road and Expansion. So, what happens when all these amazing inventions and goods spill past China's borders? Well, you get the Silk Road. Under Tang and later Mongol rule, the Silk Road wasn't just a single dusty path, it was a sprawling, massive global highway. Chinese merchants used new roads and waterways to ship out extremely valuable stuff. Silk, tea, and porcelain flowed west out of China, while silver, spices, carpets, and the Buddhist religion flowed east right back into China. Jumping ahead to the Ming Dynasty, their ambitions were just way too big to be contained to land routes. These are the same rulers who built the famous Forbidden City, by the way. But they started projecting immense power across the oceans, too. Way before the major European explorers were setting sail, a Chinese commander named Zheng He led these unbelievably massive maritime expeditions. He commanded huge naval fleets that completely showcased China's vast wealth and diplomatic influence to the rest of the world. Let's do our last quick fact check on this global expansion. This era of global connectivity truly peaked when Mongol conquests under the Yuan dynasty pushed trade routes all the way into Eastern Europe. This is what brought European travelers like Marco Polo to China, and his writings sparked an absolute obsession in the West. Later, the Ming dynasty cemented that dominance with Zheng He's massive naval fleets. And driving it all were those big three exports: silk, tea, and porcelain, totally dominating global trade. Wow, okay, we have just covered thousands of years of incredible history in this explainer, going all the way from isolated warring states to a globe-spanning economic empire. But I want to leave you with this final thought. Look around your room right now and ask yourself, how much of your modern life, the printed books you read, the way your phone navigates, the very cups you drink from, started thousands of years ago in those isolated ancient river valleys? Thanks so much for joining me on this journey.